Okay, so before we look at this fight, why are Mandu and Krong and Eileen not on full health? Riddle me that. Hello my sea unicorns, Seabro here, and today I thought we could look at the Dynasty Charge game and specifically the King's Row round. Let's jump straight into the video. Before we start, in case people are watching this far in the future, this game happened on the 4th of July 2021. This is the first video in this style that I'm doing on my channel, so if you have any advice then please chuck them in the comments below. Please be nice, I have low self-esteem, but yeah, let's sit back and enjoy. Okay, so we have a double bubble composition against Hackfist Dive. Sombra Doomfist is pretty strong on first point defense here because you get this really nice high ground to surround the point. So there are a lot of angles they can engage from. I do heavily prefer double bubble here though. Hackfist is going to really struggle with a Brig Kree protecting the Ana, but both compositions are fairly viable. Okay, so Marvel jumps up to scout and sees Ryo and Krong. Not sure why Ryo shows himself here. Krong can do it by himself. I guess it doesn't really matter because the rest of Charge's team are on point, so they're not going to try for a surprise dive or anything. Okay, so this fight, Dynasty know that Charge are playing some sort of dive composition, but because Doom is just chilling, they don't know it's Hackfist. Charge have just surrounded point. Their plan is to let them push onto point and then engage with their Doomfist and a Hack. The Guangzhou Charge tanks are just vibing here to try and pressure cooldowns. Interestingly, now we see Doomfist start to rotate around point. They have seen that Seoul's backline is much further back and they can't initiate from here. Charge give up a tick. And now Charge are all playing together. I actually really dislike this engagement from Charge and I'll explain why. So Eileen's just chilling, waiting for a hack, and Animo's doing this hilarious invis checking thing around statue. He's bridging the front line and the back line together. Creative is standing with the McCree. If Sombra initiates, Creative will just jump down and chill with the Brig. Basically, Creative is way too far back for anyone but Sombra to engage. So as long as he's standing near either Brig or Cowboy, he's totally fine. Totally fine. Nothing can hurt him, which is really bad for Charge because bursting cooldowns onto Seoul's backline is literally what their composition's win condition is. The rest of Seoul's team are pressurizing point, so now Charge are forced to do something. At this stage, Charge have two real options. The first and my preferred one would be to get the tanks to ping pong point by hotel, and then the Dynasty would be forced to bring their backline forward so Brig and McCree can get value. And then they could try and stage the initiation. Instead they actually opt to try and hack Brig and punch Azaria, who has personal up. Hackfist is always going to struggle against double bubble, but this does seem a bit of a rushed engagement. The other big problem that Charge have with this engagement is that Ana was being pressured by the McCree and had to drop. It's a problem we have when you run a Lucio rather than a Brig. Lucio might have been able to try and contest the McCree, but this doesn't seem like a well-planned engagement from the Charge. It definitely gives us a panic, I don't know what to do, let's punch the Zarya vibes. I might be wrong, but that's what it looks like to me. This is what I think the fight should have looked like. Charge let Dynasty tanks come on point. Diva and Winston hang by hotel and just alternate touching the point. This would force Dynasty to move their backline forward because they wouldn't be able to kill anything with Ana, Kree and Briggs standing so far back. They'll probably rotate Ana up the stairs and onto the high ground. The Seoul tanks would then have to back up a little bit during that rotation. Charge's Doomfist would rotate around. Charge's Winston and Diva could then push up and then they could look for a dive on the Ana, or they could just push on the Seoul tanks while Ana is rotating. And I think that play would have had a much higher chance of success than what they did. And then it's just clean up. Kriv changes to Moira, and Doom changes to Reaper. Second, Point King's Row is much harder to get use out of the high ground than on first point, and Ana will be ultra vulnerable, so these switches make sense. But just appreciate how low Charge's ultra charge is after that fight, and they just changed 2 heroes. Second point is always hard enough not to get steamrolled, but this looks ultra tough. Okay, Dynasty changed to Sombra Echo and D.Va. Oh no, Prophet! That's so sad! Okay, so Prophet eats his life away. Not really his fault, his team should have had a presence up there sooner. Guangzhou Charge used it as an opportunity to engage, which is fine. Okay, so from the Dynasty perspective, Fitz gets a really nice hack on the Reaper, but Marble in his infinite wisdom primals him to safety, so then everyone starts shooting different things. Primal is great at disrupting the enemy, but if you push the entire team back to cover, then you are doing the opposite of disrupting. Nano Monkey charges monsters with EMP, but Reaper isn't ready to follow up on the Monkey, so there isn't enough damage. With any Sombra based composition, Sombra can't do much after an EMP or hack because they are usually forced out really quickly, so it's ultra important that the other DPS and the rest of the team can follow up on it. The Charge then tried to keep the momentum up with a D.Va bomb, but it's way too late, they were backing up anyways. If they had comboed it with an EMP, then it would have been a really easy fight to win in my opinion, because Winston was so far forward. The Dynasty tanks get split from the rest of their team, so rightfully Choi-So-Wan on Reaper and Rio Monkey run forward, but Lucio, Sombra, Moira and D.Va do very little and are very slow to go aggressive. I'll go back and play it again. Ignoring the EMP and the fact that they bombed too late, look at the follow up on the D.Va bomb. Reaper and Monkey go in fine, they are on the ball, they press W perfect. Now look at Mandu's perspective. He's playing right at the back of his team, hesitates a little bit, but then runs over there eventually. Kriv doesn't use damage orb, doesn't try to damage either of Dynasty's tanks. He's happy healing the 2 HP that his team is missing. I can understand Eileen is late back to the fight, understandable after translocating after EMP, but again, can't really damage towards the tanks. And Krong, as mini D.Va, doesn't try to damage the tanks either, he just focuses on remeching. The proper Charge are running a composition that needs to be incredibly aggressive against the Dynasty, especially after committing ultimates. After deciding to commit ultimates, Charge needs to 1. All press W, but 2. All become DPS characters for a few seconds, or they just won't kill anything. And that's really common with Sombra based competitions because you tend to only have 1 DPS player to follow up on opportunities. And if the rest of his team doesn't compensate for that loss in damage, then that's also when you see your DPS or tanks overextended to try and get kills. Anyways, I'll stop rambling, let's continue.
Nerf this!
Animo rallies. Mandu sound barriers to save Rio. If Rio wasn't low, they could have just kited, but now they won't have Lucio's ultimate for Fitz EMP. Sad. Now Kriv coalescences, despite the fact that Fitz has EMP basically up. They get a 5-man EMP, and finally someone actually dies. Guangzhou literally commit 5 ultimates to a fight, but then they get so little use out of them, it's insane. Okay, so I want to go back a little bit because I want to compare the 2 EMPs from both teams, because they are in pretty similar situations. EMPing when Monkey is in your backline is really good because he won't be able to escape. But in Dynasty's EMP, Prophet is there to clean up, and Kriv is split from his Winston so he can get no heals. Whereas if we look at Charge's EMP, Choi-So-Wan seems like he didn't know it was going to happen, so there's a fair bit of hesitation. Charge are actually running a very brawly based composition. People often just look at the main tank and go, "Ooh, that must be dive because they got a Winston." But with a Reaper and Lucio, they want to be speeding the Reaper in to go and kill things. But that's only a valid tactic if you are really quick to respond, and your team are all on the same wavelength, and that is to press bloody W and melt those poo brains down if it's the last thing we do. Anyways, let's continue. Dynasty then push forward as you usually do on King's Row, and Charge are going to have to look for some insane Death Blossom because they have such a suboptimal ult economy right now. Prophet duplicates Sombra.
Sombra. I'm feeling
and Charge takes the L. They didn't really need duplicate and nano if I'm honest. Dynasty do a really standard Winston jump there on the backline to disrupt with a Primal, but it's a bit early, the team isn't really ready to follow up yet. Animal on Brig is also doing nothing but protecting the Ana. Once the fight has started and the Winston is juggling the backline, Ana is actually pretty safe because it will be very hard for them to coordinate a dive on her. Moving to Horseshoe over here would have given her adequate protection, but also allowed the Brig to get stuck in on the Winston. Charge then do a very smooth EMP Blossom to win. Reaper then switches to Tracer for Guangzhou Charge. It's not the best point to get good angles to Tracer, but she is very good at following up on attacks and Molotofs. Okay, let's watch that fight because it's much better than any of their previous engagements. Kariv engages with Coalescence and their team all immediately press W. Eileen is ready to get the hack on the Brig and allows the Winston to yeet in their backline and block all of the hills. They then get pick on Animo and it's an easy win from there. Absolutely textbook. Seoul could have tried to contest the D.Va with the D.Va bomb, but they decided to just take the dry fight, so it's not too bad from their point of view either. Okay, so before we look at this fight, why are Mandu and Krong and Eileen not on full health? Riddle me that.
Systems in overdrive.
Mandy walks away from his team and it all kind of falls apart, which is a real shame because Tracer 1 got the timing spot on and it definitely caught Dynasty by surprise. They could have just turned around and melted the Winston, I guess. That could have been a play, but rallying Brig is hard enough to take down as a full team, but when Winston is in your backline it's near impossible. Really nice idea though. I would have preferred to see Mando committing a little bit further forward though, and you know, maybe healing himself between fights, but I like the idea of that play. Marvel pops Primal, but only really achieves forcing Moira Fade. Prophet goes for a really early duplicate. Nobody really cares about Prophet, so let him EMP. He only gets Krong, who is forced to bomb. 2U throws out a counter bomb. The placement isn't the best, but it forces out B from Mandu. Fitz has a brain fart. What's that? What is that? Kriv finally gets his ultimates. Prophet flies indoors and doesn't get packed, so dies. And now it's pretty much lost. They have significant spawn disadvantage and 1% down, and they only have Nano. I'm guessing Nanoing Fitz was an accident? Animo uses Rally. And they eventually win through an EMP. Dynasty definitely looking the better team at the moment, but let's see if that continues, because Charge looked really like a changed team on that last point there. Next round! Let's go. Dynasty opting for a Ryan Diva comp now, Charge opting for Winston Diva. Guangzhou isn't entirely sure what they feel like playing. Marvel is on mine here, standing on the stairs, aiming to bait a dive. When 2U moves up to save Marvel, Eileen jumps on point and diverts Ativa's attention. That was really nice by the Charge. I wasn't overly impressed with their defense, but this attack was actually pretty nice. Having said that, Kriv rotates up the stairs, so when Rio drops down, he just dies. Hard to know without the comms whose fault that is, but when you dive as Winston, you know that you are going to eventually get pressured out and you need to drop back. And when you drop back, you want to drop back to a safe place where your team is, so that they can help, and that if the enemy tries to push you further, that they just die. In this case, since Anna is changing position, Winston could back up to where Diva is. Even if Mandu had a health packs available and was contesting the Sombra properly, backing up to Anna is just better. Choice 01 does the Genji thing where they jump everywhere except where they can get hills. Kriv now has the first ultimate by a fair bit. If they had engaged quicker, then Dynasty wouldn't have had any ultimates available. It's hard to tell what they had been ult tracking, but usually getting first ultimate, you want to be popping it crazy early and just winning off that. Nano Monkey should be an easy fight win if they don't have anything to respond with. Loving the sleep from Kriv here. Fits EMPs, but Rio is doing such an insane job distracting half their team, and Creative is still sleeping. The EMP does nothing and Fitz just dies. This is such a good example of how Nano Monkey or Primal Monkey can wreak so much havoc in the enemy backline. Really nice EMP on the enemy tanks. Big slam! Again, look at their reaction to a Primal monkey. 3 people turn around is insane value, absolutely ridiculous ability. Having said this, Crib gets absolutely bullied, which is really unlucky. They then just get a really big EMP and win off that. And we have a winner. I think that was well deserved. Seoul were the better team. I don't really like Genji in Charge's composition. I think Nano Monkey is better than Nano Blade most of the time, and he isn't as versatile and able to follow up on Sombra hacks as well as Tracers. Guangzhou had good moments, but they didn't look as well organised as Dynasty. They didn't get as much value out of their ultimates because they weren't aggressive enough of them, and their timing was a little bit off. Charge seemed somewhat reactive, whereas Dynasty were almost always controlling the game, and they got so much more value from the ultimates. Dynasty did let Guangzhou Charge get too much value out of Dragon Blade when they have like 10 billion abilities to counter it, and they had a few mares, but it's still hard to watch this game and not mention that Dynasty felt a lot more comfortable. Anyways, that is it from me. Hope you enjoyed and learned something. If you like this type of content, then let me know that you want to see more of it in the comments down below, and if you have any suggestions on how to make this content better, I'm all ears. Remember to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you happy folks next time.